Peter, you've covered these two companies, China Unicom and Baidu, for a long time. What does this alliance mean to you?
Well, it's an important step for both companies at this point. The Chinese government has been looking for ways to improve the efficiency of the state-owned enterprises throughout the economy. That's from the oil companies, the railroad companies, and the telecom companies. The telecom sector is really dominated by these three companies. And with China Unicom in particular, they want to be able to increase the efficiency of some of these operations. They're hoping that Baidu can bring some of the private sector innovation and efficiency to the state-owned company.
Now, Gordon, that's going to be an unusual idea for a lot of our viewers. What does the Chinese government, why do they have anything to do with the partnership of these two companies? Why would they have any interest in seeing a China Unicom and a Baidu get together on these areas?
Well, Premier Li Ka-chang about a year ago announced his Internet Plus strategy, and the idea was that the Internet was going to revitalize Chinese industry, including state-owned enterprises. And so, therefore, they are looking at the stodgy telecom companies, Unicom, China Telecom, and they were thinking of merging the two of them together, but they realized that wasn't going to do any good. So they thought, well, why don't we spice up one of them with Baidu? Now, for Baidu, this makes sense in the sense that you put, for instance, Baidu's search function on the 3G handsets of Unicom. But if you're talking about mixed ownership, I don't think this does Baidu any good because they're buying into a company with very low growth potential.
Well, what does it do for Baidu, if anything? I mean, they already have some of these distribution agreements with the large mobile carriers in China for their technology.
Yeah, I don't think it does very much, because you also got to remember that Baidu has a partnership with China Telecom. That was from last May. And so you have, Baidu able to really put its products onto the telecom services. So I don't know what this does for Baidu. I know what it does for Unicom, because when they announced on October 22nd that, they were thinking of this mixed ownership scheme and participating in it, China Unicom stock really soared in Hong Kong. But for Baidu, it doesn't do them any good at all. I think it just weighs them down. Now, Baidu's a company in trouble. They had a very bad quarter in the sense the first quarterly drop in revenue since 2005 when they went public. But nonetheless, I just don't see how this would help.
Peter, our colleague Tim Colpin wrote an interesting gadfly column today about the union, described it almost as a romance and talked about the possible offspring of Unicom and Baidu. What did you think of that analysis? And is this akin to a kind of a merger or a union?
Well, I think it's the beginning of a potential romance, to stick with Tim's potential analogy here. The two companies are trying each other out. This is a relatively low investment form of cooperation between the two companies at this point. I mean, as mentioned before, Baidu is struggling here. Baidu has fallen behind the other leading internet players in China, Alibaba and Tencent in particular. They've tried a number of different strategies, including this online to offline strategy. They've been investing in artificial intelligence. And this is an experiment. Perhaps the romance goes someplace, perhaps it doesn't.
Gordon, I'll let you have the last word. If this is a manifestation of this reform effort, what might come next? Will we see similar partnerships with other companies?
We've seen Xi Jinping during his rule of 4 years combine already large state enterprises back into formal monopolies. We're starting to see combinations here, perhaps with Unicom and Baidu. This isn't going to help. The Japanese tried doing this in the 1980s, and everyone liked it at the time, this sort of convoy system. But ultimately, it didn't work out. And I don't think it's going to work out for China either, because what plagued the Japanese is going to plague the Chinese as well.